What's up, everybody? John from Old Running Farm here. Thanks for joining us. In today's video, we are going to answer some of your questions about alpacas. Now, wow, there's some flies in here, huh? So, let's see. I am actually in the third floor of our big house that we were thinking might become a fiber mill someday. But anyway, I'm going to show you a quick update on what's going on with the mother-in-law house build. Got some big changes, so it's pretty cool. And so we're getting back to the animals, as I know you guys all want. There's a lot going on here, so just trying to keep up as best we can. So I got a big show coming up with Sawdust and Sapwood, which if you don't follow me on Instagram, please give me a follow at Sawdust and Sapwood. And yeah, pretty exciting. So I'm going to give you a quick bird's eye view of the new house build. Got a lot of equipment here. So you can see, got some concrete forms down there. They're working on grade over there. Bringing in lots of fill. Make sure it's all nice and level. Never had more pieces of equipment on my property ever. This is crazy. So it's looking pretty good. Very exciting. All right, so I just had to break up a little bit of a fight. The boys, man, they get into it more often than the girls for sure, and for extended periods of time, which is not that much fun. But what are you gonna do? Anyway, so here we are coming up to the ladies. There's Lulu. And we're gonna just have a seat and talk about alpacas. Man, it is like 68 degrees right now. And it is February 16th, so it's weird. Anyway, let's start answering your questions. Look at Belinda. You're so pretty. So pretty. Look at all these alpacas. Tell you what, they are enjoying the weather though. Look at that one. Yes, it's a nice day out here, alpacas. Hi, Macy. Got your little buddy Linda right next to you, huh? Hi, Petal. Lulu's coming up to see what's going on. Busy day here. Construction's happening right over there. Woo! All right, so I apologize if there's any wind noise. Can't really get rid of it out here, and I'm not sure if it's actually being picked up or not. So, we put out a video a couple weeks ago asking you guys to give us some of the questions that you had about alpacas so that we can answer them. And now, we've done a bunch of videos where we've answered questions about alpacas, but apparently you guys have more and more. So, I'm always happy to answer them. I try to answer them in the comments, but oftentimes I just don't have time. If you do have an actual question about alpacas and you're starting to get alpacas and you're curious about what you need, feel free to send us an email, oldreddingfarm@gmail.com. We try to answer every email that we get, and I think we do a pretty good job. You know, we're not that big yet. So anyway, let's get started. All right, so first question is actually not an alpaca question. It's from Karen T, and Karen asks, do you want to add goats to make soap? And now Karen knows that we are crafters and we do craft shows in the fall, and we're actually starting to do more in the spring and summer this year with my chainsaw carving and wood working, I guess we'll call it. So we do lots of craft shows, and so having goats that make milk would be a good way of, you know, broadening our horizons, expanding our product line, that kind of thing. But we're honestly just not that interested in goats, because we love goats. They're really cool. We have plenty of friends who have goats, but all they do is try to escape. And so that's not good. And then I think also just the process of milking and then turning that milk into soap is just going to be so time consuming. You know, we already don't have a whole lot of time. So, you know, we both have full-time jobs. So I think adding something like that is definitely on my list. And I think maybe someday, if we're ever doing this full time, we might add goats. You know, something to think about for sure. Thank you for your question, Karen. All right, Annette R has a bunch of questions, so we're going to start with that. Number one, how often do you shear the alpacas? And now this is one of the most common questions we get about alpacas. So they get shorn once a year, and it's in late spring, usually in May, where we are. So we're in Connecticut, Northwest Connecticut. So they keep their fiber on during the peak winter months, and then they get shorn when it starts to get warmer. Because really, alpacas are from the mountains in South America. So they need their fiber for the cold, obviously. And their fiber is so well insulating, and I always tell this story, that they'll be out here with 6 inches of snow on their back, and you know that they're not cold because their body heat never escapes to melt the snow. So alpacas get shorn once a year, and it's a very traumatic experience for some of them. I'm just kidding. They actually, some of them do really well, and some of them really, really hate it. So some of them make it more easy than others. Some spit and they pee a little bit, and it's kind of gross. And then some of them just take it like a champ and get it done, get it over with. And if they cooperate, it's done in 5 minutes. And the guy that we use to shear is a real expert. We did a video of him shearing last year, and we'll probably do another one this year. He's the best. Next question is, do you prep your own fur before it's yarn? So we actually call alpaca fiber or fleece, that kind of thing. Because I think fur refers to something that, you know, needs the pelt too. But anyway, just a little clarification there. So we do not do anything to prep our fiber for processing. And that is because we just have so much of it. It's really difficult to do. Now, we are thinking about changing that this year. And now we send all of our fiber out to be processed again because we have so many alpacas and we don't have the capability to process it fully on our own. So since we send it out on our own, it usually doesn't make sense for us to do any prep work beforehand. And our previous mill that was in town here that we loved, she was the best. It was really convenient to, like, the day after they got shorn, we just bring it right there, good to go. But we're gonna do a different process this year. And one of the things that I saw in one of the alpaca groups is they took an electric cement mixer, and instead of having the cement mixer end part of it, they made like this barrel that had wire mesh on it so that you could tumble your fleece. And so what that'll do is it'll get rid of all of the, like, the wood chips, because, you know, we have all these wood chips here, there's dirt, there's rocks, there's, you know, pieces of straw. So doing that beforehand will hopefully get rid of most of the vegetable matter, and then that way there's a lower incoming weight, because there's a lot of things with fiber processing that are based on incoming weight. So like tumbling, skirting, washing, that kind of thing is all based on the amount of fiber that you give to the mill. And then when they process it and turn into yarn, that's finished weight. So then you pay for the weight of the yarn that you get when it's finished, if that makes sense. So if we can eliminate some of the incoming weight by, you know, getting a couple $100 cement mixer and modifying it, that might make sense for sure. Annette also asks, do we sell the yarn or do we just sell the hats? Now, I just made a video a couple videos back about trying not to be too selly, so I'm not going to mention it here, but we do sell the yarn. This past year we've sold gloves. In the future we're going to sell socks and maybe even insoles, all kinds of stuff, because we've really found that having a broad product scope when it comes to craft season makes a tremendous difference, because not everybody wants a hat, you know, or some people already have a hat, but they're looking for gloves, they're looking for socks, they're looking for this, they're looking for that. So we're going to expand our product line for sure. If you want to buy something from us, you can Google us and you'll find us. The last question Annette asks is, what time of year do you shear them? I'd already mentioned that, so I'll just say it again. We shear usually in May, like mid-May towards end of May. You don't want to shear them too early, because especially around here, you can get a cold snap, and then if they're all, you know, freshly shorn, they're going to be really cold. So, especially the little ones. We have some that are on the chubbier end. Looking at you, Belinda. So they should be fine. But like, you know, the smaller ones will have some trouble if we get a cold snap and they're freshly shorn. So it's kind of a delicate balance between, you know, end of spring and beginning of summer. But it will depend on where you're at. You know, if you're in Texas, you're probably shearing, I don't know, February, March, something like that. But here, you know, we need to make sure we get through all the cold spells before we move them on to summer. One of my favorite questions that I get, and this is not on a video, but just favorite questions, is like people come here and they feed the alpacas and then they're like, so what do you do with alpacas? And really, like, you're listening to it now. I mean, you're watching it now. This is what we do. Just kind of hang out. They don't really do too much, but we like it that way. They're very calm animals and they're nice. Barb J asks, how long does it take for an alpaca to have a baby? Now, the gestation period for alpacas is 11 months. Let me say that again. 11 months, which is a tremendously long time, practically a year. So it actually takes a lot of planning to hatch out, to have babies. And now, so we did some planned breedings last year. We did a terrible job of note taking, so we'll have to see what happens in the spring. But so you basically have to plan for early summer babies, because in that same way that you don't want a cold snap right after you have shorn alpacas, you certainly don't want a cold snap when you have a new cria, which is what you call a baby alpaca. So, I mean, 11 months is an awfully long time, but alpacas are really stoic animals, and there's very few times where they actually let you know that there's something wrong with them. So it's very hard to even know when they're pregnant. So even, you know, some of the alpacas that we got, that we have adopted, have been pregnant and nobody knew when we adopted them, and they just gave birth when they were here, when they had no interaction with males on our farm. So anyway, next question for Barb is, do they ever have multiples, like multiple cria in a litter? I don't think so. From what I understand, I think it's like insanely rare, but I think for the most part, one alpaca, one baby. So I don't think multiples are really a thing, especially because when alpacas are born, when they're cria, they start walking after just a few minutes. Like when he's on the other side. When baby Finn was born, my mother-in-law came over, like called me, and she was like, when did you get a new baby alpaca? And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? We didn't get a new baby alpaca. And turns out we did, and he was just walking around and he was just fine, you know? So that's one of the things, I think, because they're so ready to go when they're born, there's not enough room in there for more than one. Donna L asked, why do some have neckties and others don't? That's really just left over from when we either adopted them or purchased them. You know, we're at the point now, we have 30 alpacas, so it's really hard to keep track of them, especially the white ones. There's an awful lot of those. So some of them have little necklaces that came with them when we brought them here, and we've just left them on to sort of identify them, but also, you know, they don't like to be touched, so it's just one of those things, like if we don't need to go and grab them and take it off, then just let them wear it. So, have your alpacas ever spit on you? The answer to that question, unfortunately, is yes. Although it's not really intentional. We did have a boy who had berserk male syndrome, and so he would kind of attack me from time to time. So that wasn't good, but that is very rare. It's not the norm at all, especially with ladies. Yes, they have spit on me. Usually it's when I'm not moving fast enough at breakfast time and they're feeling a little competitive with each other. And so the main thing about alpacas is they won't spit on you unless you get in the way. Because usually alpacas will spit at each other, but they won't spit at humans. And then Donna also asked if they were used as pack animals. I believe they may have been, but not like llamas were. So llamas are pack animals. They are much bigger than alpacas. They're usually twice the size. They're also a little aggressive. They're much stronger. So llamas were really the ones used for pack animals in the mountains and stuff like that. I think alpacas were really just used for their fiber. And it's actually really interesting. So like in South America, they'll have like hundreds and thousands of alpacas in one flock, and they'll basically just let them roam in the mountains all year round, and then just bring them in, you know, herd them in one time a year, shear them all, and then let them all go again. And that way, you know, they don't have to worry about upkeep, feed, hay, anything like that. They only bring them in one time to shear them, and then they get all the fiber. That's how you can get inexpensive alpaca fiber, because they, you know, they don't have any of the overhead like we do in terms of hay and feed and water and all that kind of stuff. They're basically like free range alpacas. It's pretty cool. All right, guys, so that's gonna do it for this video. As I said, if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer in another video, please leave them in the comments down below. If you're looking to get started with alpacas and have more in-depth questions that you'd like help with, send us an email, oldreddingfarm@gmail.com, and we'll see you in the next video.